Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Hero Arts. Happy birthday to you. But it looks like we're the ones who get all of the presents. Hi folks, it's Scott here with the new My Monthly Hero May 2024 kit. That is right, this month Hero Arts turns 50, a big 50, 50 for Hero Arts. We are the beneficiaries of this amazing anniversary for them. Let's dig right in and see what we've got. Well, rather apropos, this is a birthday set. We start with a floral cake clear stamp set. This is a 4x6-inch stamp set with a large cake and cake stand. There's a slice of cake, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sentiments here, some little flowers and a strawberry, a bunch of different candles there. That's our stamp set. We do get 11 coordinating dies that, of course, cut out all of those images, everything including the sentiments. I love it when we get sentiment dies with our kits. Then we get 6 sheets of Luxe White watercolor paper. We tend to get this watercolor paper fairly regularly in our kits. It's really good, high quality watercolor paper. And we get a contour ink pad. This is that great like light gray ink that's perfect for no line watercoloring or no line stamping. We get a flat water flow brush. Now I've got tons of water flow brushes, but I think this is the first one that I've gotten that actually has a flat brush on it. Look at that. That's very interesting. And then we get a watercolor palette. This is a little mixing palette, little plastic watercolor palette, mixing palette, always handy to have. And then a watercolor swatch card, which we have, I believe there are 2 of these in here that are swatches of watercolor on cardstock. So you can actually wet a brush and dip it in those colors and paint with them. Those are watercolor swatch cards. All these watercolor supplies. And then, if that weren't enough, we get a special 50th anniversary gift. And in our little tissue here this is our message clear stamp set. Hooray, wish, it's your birthday, hip, hip, make wishes happy. A little confetti there. And we also get 3 coordinating dies that cut out the hooray and the birthday and the wish, and a yay fancy die that cuts out the yay and its outline. That's our little extra gift this month for the classic kit. Look at all those goodies. And then for those of us who are getting the premium kit, included in the premium kit is, of course, everything in the classic kit. And then we get a balloon background cling stamp. 4.6, a little more than 4.5 inches by a little more than 5 3/4 inches, 5.8, 4.6, a balloon background cling stamp. We've got heart balloons and brown balloons and oval balloons. It's a great background cling stamp. And we get a pack of champagne sequins, gold and white, and birthday enamel dots. And then we also get a premium special 50th anniversary gift in the premium pack. And that includes so here is a yay clear stamp and matching die. There you go. I guess that flips, doesn't it? Yay clear stamp and matching die, and a congrats fancy die. Great big die, congrats, with a shadow outline for it also, along with a great exclamation point. Oh my goodness, look at all of this stuff. It may be Hero Arts' 50th anniversary, but I feel like it's my birthday with a great birthday kit to celebrate not only Hero Arts' birthday, but everybody's birthday in your life. Looks like this is going to be a great month to stock up your stash of birthday cards. Happy 50th, Hero Arts! And here are my 10 cards for the month, all white card bases. Looks like there's one craft card base here. Now, apparently they are encouraging us to do some no-line watercoloring this month. So that is right where I'm going to start. For card number 1, we have yay, happy birthday card. I am certainly no expert when it comes to no-line coloring, especially with watercolors, but I'm very pleased with this. I used the watercolor paper, the water brush, and the watercolor palette to create our background. There's much more color on that watercolor palette than one might think. And I'm quite pleased with that flat water flow brush. I have gobs of water flow brushes in my stash, but this is the first flat water flow brush that I own. So once I was happy with my background, I die cut the panel with a Lawn Fawn stitched rectangle die that's 5 inches by 3 3/4 inches, and I glued that flat to a white A2 card base. I stamped the cake and the plate and the candle on some more watercolor paper using the contour ink. I stamped them all 3 times before I could really discern the outlines. Now, I did use small regular brushes to paint everything, and for some reason, I decided to do a pink cake. I know, right? But a lighter, even white cake base would make coloring all the florals much easier. I did have to paint many layers on the flowers to show up on that pink. One secret I did learn about no-line coloring is to do your final detailing with some colored pencils. It's easy to add some shading and definition with the pencils and not lose that no-line coloring effect. So I die cut all 3 stamps with their matching dies. I glued the cake to the plate and the candle behind the cake. I also stamped and colored the small strawberry and the flower cluster the same as everything else. I die cut them out and added them to the cake with thin foam tape for a little bit more dimension. I added thin foam tape behind the whole cake assemblage, and I added that to the front of the card. I stamped the 2 sentiments with VersaFine Onyx Black ink. I embossed them both with clear embossing powder. I die cut them out with their matching dies. You know, I love me some sentiment dies. I added 2 blank die cuts behind the yay sentiment for a little dimension. I glued that to the card front. I mounted the happy birthday sentiment with foam tape. I don't think I've ever done a no-line coloring project with images quite this small. I think that technique's probably easier with larger images, but I'm quite pleased with how this first card came out. It's very colorful, very happy birthday. Well, that card took a little bit more time than I thought it would, so let's try something a little simpler for our next card. And we have a yay, happy birthday card. So on a panel of Bristol Smooth cardstock, I stamped the birthday candles using the Gina K Wreath Builder template, along with the Gina K Designs Obsidian Amalgam ink. I do like the consistency of having this Wreath Builder template. It always seems to work for me. I colored the candles with my Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers, and I die cut the panel with a Hero Arts Infinity rectangle die. That's 4 inches by 5 1/4. I stamped the sentiments with VersaFine Onyx Black ink, and I embossed them with some clear embossing powder. I mounted the stamped panel on a mat of black tie glitter cardstock, and I glued those to an A2 white card base. Now, I die cut the yay die from the same black tie glitter cardstock, and I die cut 6 more from a rainbow of thin cardstock and glued them all together. That adds a fun little spot of color behind that yay. I die cut the yay shadow from some 40-pound vellum. I glued and stacked the yay on top and then down to the card front. I added a touch of glitter to the candle flames, and I think the halo of candles sets off this yay die just perfectly. Happy birthday! I do like the big, bold sentiments included in our 3x4-inch message clear stamp set extra. Most of my happy birthday sentiments in my stash seem to be much, much smaller than that. So now we have a Make a birthday wish card. A fun background and those big sentiments are all you really need for a lively birthday greeting. I reached for my favorite party stencil. This is an old Stampendous Flourishes metal stencil. This is one of my favorite party stencils. I'm sure you've seen it before. I used lemon drop ink and fruit punch reactive inks through that stencil on a panel of white cardstock. I got a nice orange where the two colors blended. I die cut that with the Hero Arts Infinity Rectangle die. That's 5 by 3 3/4. I glued it to a 5 1/4 by 4 inch specialty gold cardstock mat. This is fun. Really, I think this is some Stampendous paper that somebody gifted to me. Really like that. Great gold, but with that great texture. I glued everything down to a white card base. Now I arranged the sentiments on the front and I ombre stamped them with the purple galaxy on the bottom and the blue Hawaii reactive ink on the top. Now because the reactive inks stay wet for a bit, I embossed the sentiments with some clear embossing powder. For a final touch, I stamped the star from the same stamp set with Versamark ink. I embossed that with some Hero Arts gold embossing powder. There is lots of shine on this card for a card that doesn't have any sequins on it. Make a birthday wish. I thought that was a fun amalgam of our big messages, birthday sentiments. I knew I wanted to attempt that cake stamp again, but this time I just wanted to stamp it in black and color it. And so we have a congratulations birthday card on Bristol Smooth cardstock, and using Gina K amalgam ink, I stamped the cake plate, masked the top edge of the cake plate, then stamped the cake, then masked the top part of the cake and stamped the candles. It's fairly easy to accomplish. That's not complicated masking. And especially with the black outline, it makes for a very cohesive image. No big die cuts there. I colored everything with my Zig markers, and I was able to die cut the whole image using very careful partial die cutting for the bottom and halfway up for this. I did have to do some fussy cutting around the candles, but it is mostly die cut. Oh, and so much for white cake frosting. I ran across the perfect embossing folder for a birthday card. This is a Sizzix 3D Impressions Happy Birthday 3D embossing folder. This is a big chunky embossing folder, but it works so well. I embossed a 3 3/4 by 5 inch panel of white cardstock with the folder. I glued that to a 4 inch by 5 1/4 inch plain black mat, and I glued those down to an A2 craft card base. I guess that's why I made this kind of a beige icing, just to go with a craft card base. I stamped the sentiment using VersaFine Onyx Black ink. I embossed that with some clear embossing powder and die cut it with the matching die. Love those sentiment dies. I attached the cake to the card front with thin foam tape, added another die cut layer to the sentiment, and then added that to the card front with more foam tape as well. I like this card much more than the no line colored cake. I do think that larger images are easier and probably work a little better with no line coloring. I like this card a lot, and that embossed background certainly sets this whole card apart. Congratulations and happy birthday, cheers, cheers, cheers. We also have that piece of cake stamp in our stamp set, and I have to admit that the first moment I looked at that, my mind immediately went to a rainbow layer cake. Okay, I might be missing a layer here, but still. On another panel of the watercolor paper in the kit, I used the flat water brush and the watercolor palette to paint another yellow, orange, red background. I think those colors are very party colors. Once that was dry, I stamped the candles all over the background using soft granite ink, echoing the diagonal nature of the watercoloring. When everything was dry, I die cut the panel with a Lawn Fawn stitched rectangle die that's 4.5 by 3 1/4, and I matted that to a glossy black mat and then to a white card base. I stamped the cake on a scrap of Bristol smooth cardstock, masking off the candle, and I colored it with my zig markers. Now, I was trying to get some dimension around the icing when I came up with the idea to use some texture paste and ice the cake myself. I added a touch of gray ink to a small dab of that texture paste, and I applied it with a toothpick. You can kind of see the texture here. It's very apparent in real life. I thought that was fun, and I even added a little touch of a sparkle pen to the icing as well. Finally, some white gel pen adds a little crumb texture to our layers. I cut the cake panel to 1 1/4 inches by 2 1/2 inches. I added another glossy black mat behind that and mounted them to the card front with foam tape. I stamped, embossed, and die cut the sentiment, same as before, adding 2 blank die cut layers behind it, and I glued that sentiment directly to the card front. Loving me some of that rainbow layer cake. Great fun. By all means, let's celebrate. And that's my 5 cards using the classic kit. I almost used all the stamps in the classic set just on these cards alone, but now we get to dig into the premium kit goodies. I can't wait to use that big congrats die. So moving into the premium kit, we have congrats, a great big shiny congrats. This card started with an alcohol ink background in blues that I happened to have on hand. It worked beautifully for the big congrats die. I die cut the shadow with some glossy black cardstock. I glued them both together. Now we have that big balloon cling stamp to use, but I didn't want it to compete with the bright alcohol ink die cut. So I reached for the Butterfly Garden Palette Reactive Ink Pad. This is from the My Monthly Hero February 2023 kit for a fun gradient stamping. So I stamped that on a panel of the watercolor cardstock. So this is, the bottom half, and then flipped it for the top half. I stamped that on the watercolor cardstock, and since the palette ink is reactive ink, I lightly brushed water over this stamping to spread the colors out a little bit. Not enough to lose the outlines, but enough to spread around a little bit of color. For a final touch, I sprayed the whole background with some sheer shimmer craft spray for some added sparkle. I trimmed the background to 4 inches by 5 1/4. I added a thin mat of glossy black cardstock. I glued those to a white A2 card base. I added the die cut sentiment with thick foam tape. Now, though I do think the congrats die can be used for more than just birthdays, the balloon background certainly suggests a birthday party. Love that big congrats die. Look at that shine on that. Congrats! Of course, we have to color all those balloons at some point. So this was like the congrats is the focus. So let's make the balloons the focus and the die a highlight on this card. And so we have congrats. With all the balloons colored, while wanting to get as much bang for my buck as possible with coloring these balloons, I reached for my Yasutomo Pearlescent watercolors. These are extremely inexpensive, and I think they work really, really well. Look at that nice shine that you get on all of those balloons there. On pitch black cardstock, I stamped the balloons using Hero Art's unicorn white ink. I embossed the stamping with white embossing powder. I colored all the balloons with the Yasutomo watercolors, leaving the little highlights blank. Now, I knew I wanted a plain white die cut on top, so I reached for my Dr. P.H. Martin's bleed-proof white watercolor for all the balloon highlights. I painted all those highlights just plain, straight white. Lastly, I did use a Karen Deco brush marker, metallic gold marker. We got these in the My Monthly Hero May of 2020 kit. I used that for all of the ribbons and the confetti. I trimmed the painted panel to 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches, and I glued that to a white card base. I die cut the congrats die along with the exclamation point twice from the included watercolor cardstock. I glued both layers together and then flat down to the card front. I did use a Spectrum Noir sparkle pen to add some glitter to the sentiment. Very nice. The pearlescent watercolors and the sparkle pen add a lot of shine to this card, and I really like how all the hard white highlights play off the stark white sentiment. Congrats! So now it's time to spend some quality time and really color these balloons. Let's go back to our watercolor swatch card for this go round with the balloons. And we have, hooray, it's your birthday! I stamped the cling stamp using Gina K Amalgam ink on Bristol Smooth cardstock. I was hoping that that Bristol Smooth cardstock would help spread the watercolors around instead of just sucking them right up like watercolor paper does. So all of the balloons are watercolored using the swatch card, and the confetti and ribbon are all colored again with the Caron metallic pen. I trimmed the panel to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, sprayed it all with some sheer shimmer craft spray, and glued that down to a white card base. I think you can see that sparkle there. I stamped the 2 large sentiments in an ombre using the Butterfly Garden palette ink pad. That's the Thistle and Taffy for the bottom sentiment, and then Creamsicle and Taffy for the top sentiment. That palette ink pad makes creating an ombre effect quite easy on large sentiments like this. I literally just marked the side of my ink pad where those colors split, and if you pay attention to the side while you're stamping, you can keep those lined up pretty easily. Again, I embossed both of them with clear embossing powder, and I die cut them out along with an extra blank using their matching dies. I stamped the It's Your sentiment on a scrap of pitch black cardstock using unicorn white ink. I embossed that with white embossing powder. I die cut that with a Lawn Fawn Everyday Sentiment Banners die and mounted it to the center of the card front with foam tape. I glued the double die cut sentiments together for a little strength and mounted them to the card front with foam tape. A fun sprinkle of enamel dots finishes out this extremely colorful card. Hooray indeed. So that card used some of the enamel dots in our kit, but we also get a huge package of champagne sequins. I mean, a huge batch. So I couldn't resist, and we have a yay card, a yay no frame shaker card. Look at all those sequins. Look at all those yays. I think, now this may be the first no frame shaker card that I've ever done. Now, using again the Butterfly Garden palette ink pad, I stamped 8 yay stamps in every ombre that ink pad accorded. It's so easy to achieve when you mark the side of your ink pad. I die cut all of the yays with the matching die, and I glued them down to a pitch black A2 card panel. I also added a good sprinkling of the enamel dots, filling in some of the spaces around the yays. I actually took apart the plastic packaging that our premium elements came in, and I cut out a piece about 4 3/4 by 6 inches. Then using 1/4 inch score tape, I glued the bottom of the acetate to the back of the black panel. Now, working around and trimming the corners, I attached the 2 sides of the acetate to the back of the card front as well. I left the top open for adding the sequins. Now, I die cut the large yay die and the big exclamation point from some champagne metallic cardstock, and I die cut the shadow from some pitch black cardstock. I glued the sentiment to the shadow and glued everything down on top of the acetate. I like how that exclamation point nestles in there under the A and right next to the Y. Looks perfect that way. Now all that's left is to add as many sequins as you like, or as many sequins as the plastic will hold. Fold over the top flap and glue it to the back of the card panel. Then that whole panel gets glued down to an A2 white card base. Ta-da! A no-frame shaker card. I really like this quite a bit. You get lots of shaker action with those sequins. And I believe, as far as mailing goes, I believe this card is much thinner than a standard shaker card where you're using foam tape to create dams to hold your sequins in. Yay! Now this idea came to me while I was coloring the rainbow layer cake and is very appropriate for our last card of the month. And we have "The Party's Over." I stamped the cake and the candle and the confetti with Gina K amalgam ink on a scrap of Bristol smooth cardstock using judicious amounts of masking and drawing in the missing lines with a black Pigma Micron 02 pen that matched the line widths of the stamp very nicely. I colored all with my Zig Clean color markers again. I made this cake in honor of Joel's favorite birthday cake, which is yellow cake with chocolate frosting. I happen to have enough of the cardstock scrap to fussy cut out the cake and create a ground for our scene. Is it a plate? Is it a table? Is it the product of a fevered and delusional mind? Probably. So I found this great pattern paper in my stash to use for the background. This little gold stripe, very party-like, but a little informal. I think again that this is some Stampendous cardstock that somebody sent to me. I die cut a panel of that with a Lawn Fawn stitched rectangle die that is 5 inches by 3 3/4 inches. I glued that to a thin pitch black mat and then down to a white A2 card base. The cake plate or whatever seemed a little bit forlorn, floating on the background all alone, so I die cut a scrap of white cardstock using the same Lawn Fawn stitched rectangle die. I glued that behind the plate, trimming the corners to match and down to the bottom edge of the card front. The stitching matches up perfectly and really grounds our plate there. I turned to my trusty Silhouette software for the sentiment. I used the Hiragino Sans W9 font, which I believe that's a Mac OS font. I did that in 3 layers. So there's a black layer, a white layer, and a black layer. I was trying to echo the Wish and Yay stamps in our set that have that offset shadow behind them. I think that worked really well and makes the sentiment seem like it belongs to this kit. I cut the sentiment with my Silhouette portrait. I cut 4 matching blanks to glue them all together and then glued those down to the card front. So I was showing this card to Joel and he says, "Well, that's nice, but I'm not sure what you would use it for." I told him to open the card, and of course there's a perfect birthday reason for a card like this. Happy belated birthday. Who hasn't been a few days late for somebody's celebration? Naturally, I printed this on the inside of the card base before I glued anything to the top. Oh, this makes me giggle. The gold stripes on the background are very festive. I even added some sparkle to the cake with a sparkle pen. Just a little bit of glitter on that cake. It is a party, even if it is over. That's a fun way to wrap up our cards this month. This is certainly an enjoyable and an extremely useful kit. Happy 50th to Hero Arts. Birthday cards for everyone. I do think I used just about everything in the kit on these cards this month. I did use every image stamp in this kit, but I missed a couple of the smaller sentiments, but I think that's it. Now, surprisingly, both the premium and the classic kits are still available at Hero Arts. I'm sure stock is running low, so if you need a great birthday card kit with lots of terrific extras, I'd grab one while you still can. If you do go shopping at Hero Arts, please use my links in the description down below. That really helps support card cut-ups and this page and keeps that crafty goodness coming your way. Now, it appears that this birthday is also a farewell to the My Monthly Hero moniker. We are witnessing the birth of the new Hero Studio, a whole suite of subscriptions designed to cater to your specific interests and your bank books. Hero Studio now offers us 6 original options each month. You can subscribe to the card kit of the month, layering stencils of the month, cling stamp of the month, clear set and dies of the month, fancy dies of the month, or the whole studio, all 5 in 1. Subscription prices range from $15 to $46 or $120 for the whole studio, so you can create a subscription just for you. Now, apparently, current My Monthly Hero subscribers will be upgraded to the Hero Studio Card Kit of the Month automatically, and new kits will still launch on the first Monday of every month. I know I'm looking forward to seeing what Hero Arts has in store for us. I'll have a link in the description down below if you'd like to go directly to the Hero Studio page for more information. Thank you so much for sharing your time with me here today. I am sorry this is a little tardy. Spring has been very, very busy for me this year. I believe things will slow down a little bit now that summer is kicking in. I hope you know that your support and encouragement is always noticed and is, of course, so gratefully appreciated. You are the reason. You are, is that right? You are the reason I do this. But please take a moment to click the thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. Share this on your Facebook and Pinterest pages. Share it with all of your crafty friends. Let me know what cards are your favorite this month. Remember, don't run with scissors. And as always, I wish you and yours love and light and happy crafting. For more detailed information, better pics, and product links, please visit my website at cardcutups.com.